Hi guys, this is Nikita and welcome to the channel. In this video, we are going to be specifically talking about Zoho and banking. I had made a video on Zoho Books demo where we spoke about how to create invoices in Zoho Books, how to enter your purchase bills, how to book expenses. All of this has been explained in detail in the video that I had made on Zoho Books demo. If you still haven't watched it, I'll drop a link in the description. Go ahead and watch it. This video is a step ahead from that video. We're going to be specifically discussing how do you integrate your bank account with Zoho Books. The question first is, why do you need to integrate your bank account with Zoho Books? If you ask any accountant, how do they make entries on Tally? All the bank entries are manually made in Tally, right? Of course, there are some softwares that give you an option wherein you can import, but it is quite cumbersome and tedious, and there are chances of errors, and the integration is not that smooth. So, all the entries are made manually one by one. They get a printout of the bank statement and start making those entries. Now, that is a cumbersome and time consuming process. Zoho offers a special feature wherein, in fact, not just Zoho, a lot of cloud based accounting softwares would do that for you. You can integrate your bank account with Zoho Books, meaning, as and when you incur transactions, all those transactions will be fed directly into Zoho Books. That's one way to do it. Another way is that you can import an Excel file directly into Zoho Books. When you import that Excel file, all the transactions will get imported, whichever transactions you specifically want, right? So it becomes really time efficient if your bank account is integrated with Zoho Books, because all the transactions, they get reflected directly, and then all you need to do is classify them one by one. So what will you have to do? You will have to just select those transactions one by one and put them in separate buckets. So is it your income? It'll go in the income bucket. If it is an expense, it'll go to a specific expense bucket. Is it a business expense, a personal expense? If it is a business expense, what is its nature? Is it a subscription? Is it an entertainment expense, an office expense? So, in that manner, you'll have to put it in a bucket. If it is just a transfer from one account to another, it'll go into a separate bucket. So, in this manner, you will have to classify all the transactions of your bank statement. How does this help? This helps you maintain your profit and loss account and balance sheet effectively in Zoho Books. So it's an extremely efficient way of maintaining your bank transactions in Zoho Books. So I will suggest that you watch the video end to end first, and then you try to implement within your own Zoho Books. So you integrate your bank, and on the basis of the transactions that I'll be explaining in this video, you can classify your own transactions on your own. I'll try my best to simplify it for all of you throughout the video, and but for that it's essential that you stay till the end of the video to understand each transaction and how you can classify them. If you still haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. It'll mean the world to me. What are we waiting for? Let's begin. Step 1 is to configure your bank statement or your credit card into Zoho Books. So now if you log in into Zoho Books, you go to the banking module of Zoho Books, you will see that there are two options available for you. You can connect your bank account or credit card directly, or you can add manually, right? If you connect it directly, all the bank feeds, you just have to click on refresh feed, and as and when you incur transactions, all these transactions will directly get integrated with Zoho Books. So say I swiped for a particular expense and I just need to click on refresh feeds, and in some time that expense will be reflected in my Zoho Books, and then I can classify that expense. So connecting your bank account or credit card is always an easy option. But if you don't want to connect it directly, then you can add manually. So after adding manually, you can always import the entire bank statement into Zoho Books. We'll also see how to do that. But first, let's see how do you connect your bank or credit card? So you just click on connect bank or credit card, and then you will see there are a list of banks that are available. Whichever is your bank, you select, and you select whether it's a personal account or a business account. Once you've done that, it will take you to a screen where you'll have to enter your username and password of the bank. Okay. Now please note that a lot of people are scared that how is this going to work. Please note that no expense debits can take place, or no transfers can take place without OTPs and without transaction passwords. So integrating it with Zoho Books is not an issue. All Zoho Books does is takes those transactions and those transactions are reflected in your feed. There's nothing more to that. So you can integrate your bank account statements there, and those transactions will get reflected in your feed directly. Okay. Now Zoho Books allows you a period of 90 days you can go back. Okay. So say you're doing it today, you count 90 days back, and all those transactions can be added into your banking module of Zoho Books. If you want to take the current date, you can always go for the current date and those transactions will be reflected. However, if you want a period even which is prior to 90 days, in that case, we will use the manual option. Meaning, we will import all the transactions prior to 90 days. Let's say we want it for the last 9 or 10 months. So we go to a bank portal, download the statement for whatever period that is we require, 9 or 10 months. And once you've downloaded that statement, we just need to make a few changes. So if you can see on your screen, I've downloaded a statement from ICICI Bank for a particular account. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all the extra information. Okay, I'm going to get rid of all the headlines. I don't need any headlines. I don't need extra columns that have no data, and they're not adding anything here. For adding such transactions into Zoho Books, I need to make some edits to this Excel file. Okay, so I got rid of the headlines, I got rid of the columns that say balance. I don't need the balance. All I need is the transaction date, check number if that is applicable in your case. In this case, it's not applicable, so I've gotten rid of it. You'll need the transaction particulars. You'll need the withdrawal column, the deposits column, and that's all. Okay, so you need the date, the transaction particulars, deposits, and withdrawals. You don't even need the balance column. So after your Excel file is edited and all ready to be imported, all you need to do is go to that hamburger icon on the right side once you've clicked on your bank account that you've entered, and there's an option called import statement. Now the minute you click on import statement, it takes you to a page where you need to attach this Excel file. Okay, you attach the file, and just below it, if you see, there's an option of single column and double column. Okay, why is that option given? That option basically means in your Excel sheet, are the withdrawals and deposits in two separate columns, or are the withdrawals and deposits in a single column? Okay, in our case, the withdrawals and deposits have been separated. So I'm going to select double column, and then I'm going to click next. Now next, it takes you to a page wherein you need to correctly map what have you specified in your Excel sheet. So if it says date, you need to say in your Excel sheet, what is the name of the column for date? Is it transaction date? So you select from the drop down transaction date. You also need to specify the format of the date. Is it DD-MM-YYYY, or is it DD/MM/YYY? Whatever is the format, you just need to specify that. Then you need to specify what is the column for transaction particulars. Whatever is the name of the column in the Excel sheet, just select in the drop down. Then you need to select withdrawals and deposits. So for withdrawals, what is the column in your Excel sheet? And for deposits, what is the column in your Excel sheet? This mapping is very essential because software will understand the Excel sheet that you are importing only if this mapping is done correctly. If you make mistakes in the mapping, then the software is not going to understand what sheet you're trying to import, and then it will be a mess. So it's very important that you map it correctly. Then if you click on next, you will see that all the transactions have been mapped correctly and now they're ready to be imported. Sometimes you'll see a lot of errors that are coming at the time of import of this Excel sheet. Most of these errors are because there is some data in the blank rows and columns. So try to delete blank rows and columns. Just delete it. I mean, it can't get deleted completely, the Excel sheet, but if there's any data, the data will get deleted and then there'll be no errors. So try to delete all the data that is there in the blank rows and columns. There shouldn't be any blank rows and columns. Only the data that you want to import should be there in your Excel sheet, no other data. Okay, so once that is ready, all your transactions will get imported absolutely correctly. So once that is done, you click on next and you will see that all your transactions have gotten imported correctly. And now in the rest of the video, we're going to learn different types of transactions. I'm going to name the type of transaction and then we're going to learn how to classify them. Now on similar basis, I have also integrated a credit card here. So again, you just need to integrate the credit card directly, or you can also import the statements. For 90 days, it will get integrated directly on the basis of the information that you've put. That is your user ID, password, etc. And before that, if you want for a period before that, you'll have to import manually. Now I'm going to show you how do you classify these transactions. Now that all the transactions have been nicely imported, we just need to classify these transactions. If you can see the deposits here and you can see the withdrawals here. Okay. And there's a list of these transactions. I have imported them right from April 2021 up to the current date. You can choose whatever date that you want. Always remember, when you're starting with a new software, the best way to go about it is to define your migration date. Okay, if you've defined your migration date, things become really simple. Okay, so now let's see how do you classify these transactions. Let's go with the first transaction type. Okay, transactions which can be excluded. Okay, that's the first transaction type, transactions which can be excluded. Now, if you see in the statement, you can see that there are debits and credit of the same amount. Okay, this is because there are certain transactions that have either gotten reversed or they're in the nature of reimbursement. I incurred an expense for someone and that person has given that money back to me. Of course, if it's a loan that you're giving, that needs to be classified separately. But if it's just a mere debit credit transaction and it does not really have an impact, you can directly select exclude from here. Okay. So you need to give the reason, say that these transactions have gotten nullified. So I'm going to exclude these transactions. Of course, I'm a CA, and if you ask any CA, most of the transactions should not be excluded. You need to be able to classify them. But if there are some transactions which are clearly in the nature of debit credit and they're not going to impact your bank statements, you can exclude them. It's absolutely all right. Anyway, if you go to this drop down and you select manually excluded, you will see these transactions which have been excluded. Everything is available right there. Okay, so you can exclude some transactions which have been reversed automatically or which did not take place. Now the second type of transactions are your incomes. I'm assuming you've watched the Zoho Books demo video, because in that video I have taught you how do you create an invoice. So now that you've created an invoice based on that video, in this video you're going to record the payment against that invoice. Okay, so let's say in this deposits column, this 2,200 that has been received. Now I have to define which type of transaction is this. Is it a customer advance? Is it a customer payment? Now if I select that it's a customer payment against an invoice, Zoho will ask me, okay, tell me which customer is this. So you need to select which customer is it. And on that basis, it will show you how many invoices of that customer are pending. You can just say this amount is received against which invoice. I have created some accounts that are useful in this business. So what is this? These are basically the books of reading habits by AR. So they have different batches and different people pay them on the basis of the batches. Okay. And then they have a lot of part payments also. Now because they have a lot of part payments, it is essential for them to create invoices. So going ahead, they should start creating invoices, book the part payment against these invoices, so that as an organization they're clear as to who all have made part payments and who all have paid completely. Okay. So now under chart of accounts, I have created some income items for them. Okay. So if you see, I have created batch 16, batch 18, batch 19, batch 20, so that they know how much income is received from which batch. Based on the nature of your business, you can create these heads too. So let's say you create an invoice. Okay. Let me show you one item. Okay. Let's say I'm adding an invoice. I do not, if you're giving discounts, it will ask you for some basic details. Again, if you want to know in detail about this, you can go to my Zoho Books demo video. I'm going to say save and continue. Okay. And it'll ask me to select a customer. There's no customer right now, so I'll just create a new customer. I'll create my own customer. Okay. Nikita. Okay. Right now, I'm not giving any other details. I'm just saying save, but you can put the address and all other details. Now, let's say Nikita is a part of batch 18 for me. Okay. So I'm going to say reading habits. Let's say Nikita is a part of some batch for me. I'm just going to say reading habits. Okay. Reading habits. Let's say the selling price is 5,000. You can change this. You can just set up a normal selling price here. Okay. So now I have created an invoice in the name of Nikita and I'm going to say save as draft. Okay. And then I'm going to say mark as sent, that this invoice has been sent. Now the invoice has been finalized. Now if you go to the banking module and you see, let's say you've received this 2,200 from Nikita. Okay. So now what you can do is you can just select customer payment here, and under customer you'll say Nikita, and then it will show you that, oh, invoice number 1 was raised against Nikita. How much payment do you want to book? Then I'm going to say, okay, I want to book this 2,200 entirely against the 5,000 invoice. And I'm going to say save. Now, the minute you have done that, Zoho has categorized this transaction as customer payment by Nikita. And then if you go to your sales invoices, you will see that this invoice is partially paid. That is, 5,000 was payable and 2,200 was actually paid. Okay. So you see how the loop is completed. How is a loop completed? You raised an invoice, you booked a payment, and now it's going to correctly reflect in your P&L account. Okay. And it is also going to show you how much receivable is there from Nikita. So if you go to reports right now, and in the reports you say that, okay, show me my customer balances. It will directly show you, okay, 2,800 as on 23rd Jan 2022 is outstanding from Nikita. 2,800. Okay. So similarly, if you enter a lot of transactions and a lot of invoices and you book their payments correctly, you will get this entire list properly. Right? Now, this was one way wherein you're booking customer payments. Let's say you don't want to book a customer payment, but you just want to classify these items in your income. Okay, because everyone's paying you entirely and you don't want to get into the hassle of creating an invoice. So in that case, what you can do is, let's say this 4,400 is also a part of the income. Okay, so I will go to categorize manually. Under category, I will say, okay, this is an other income for me. Now under other income in chart of accounts, I have already created some accounts. So let's say I've received this from batch 16. Okay, and I'm going to say save. This amount was received from batch 16. Now if you go to reports and then you say profit and loss, okay, you will see in your operating income, you will see you've received some money from batch 16 and the rest is sales that you booked. Sales that you booked, that is invoice that you raised in the name of Nikita. Okay, so in this manner, you can decide how do you want your P&L to appear. If you want the income to be shown all the batch wise, you can just make one account and put all the income there. Or if you want the income, everything to go to sales account because it doesn't really matter for you, then in this case, under invoices, if you've created that item, that particular transaction, that particular sales is booked. Okay. If you want to change this sales account, you can also do that. Let me show you an example. So I just created an item called reading habits. If I edit this, you can see that it asks me to give me specify an account here. So instead of sales, let's say I decide to put batch 18 here, and I also add reading habits batch 18 here, and I say save. Okay, so now in that invoice that I created, all I need to do is change the account here. Okay, it won't happen directly. So if I say edit item, I'll say save and update line item. Okay, so what it will do is I'll just say change in nature of account. See now, the account where these sales were booked or where this revenue was booked is batch 18. Why? Because I went to that specific item and I changed the account. And I decided that, listen, I want all my income to go batch wise, so that at the end of the year I know which batch has paid me how much did I earn from each batch. So now if I go to reports, you will see that if you go to your P&L, you will see, okay, I've received from batch 16 4,400 and from batch 18 I've received 5,000. Okay, so in this manner you can book your income. You can decide how do you want it to be. Do you want it to be on a specific basis, or do you want all the income to directly go to sales account? Even that is fine. Okay, so in this manner all these deposits can be classified, right? So this is how you will classify your income. Now if you look, there's a transaction here of interest. Okay, so there's a savings account and some interest is received on the savings account, interest of 2005 rupees. So in this case, because this is an interest, it becomes a part of again your interest income. So if you see, there's a clear classification for interest income. I'm just directly going to say, okay, this is an interest income, and I'm going to say save. So this gets classified directly to your interest income. Again, if you go to reports and P&L, this portion will be reflected in your interest income. Now let's assume this is not an income for me. Okay, it is not a customer advance, it is not a customer payment, so I don't have to select it against any other account. Okay, it is, let's say I had incurred an expense and it got refunded. In that case, I'll select it's an expense refund for me. You need to understand what are the other transactions. Okay, now customer advance and customer payment will have to be booked against a particular customer that we just saw. Okay, then there's an option of transfer from another account. Okay, say you're adding some money into the business, so that becomes a part of your equity, so that goes here. Okay, so basically you check the drop down and see if any of the nature that is mentioned here, does it relate to your transaction. Similarly, there is another item called deposit from other accounts. So let's say I have taken a loan from Reading Habits by AR. Nikita has taken a loan. They had taken a loan 2 years back, and now Nikita is repaying that loan little by little. Okay, so you can go to chart of accounts, create a Nikita's loan account, and here you can select that, okay, Nikita is paying back her loan. Okay, here again, as you can see, is it in the nature of employee reimbursement? Is it in the nature of cash? What is the nature of the transaction? Okay, again, is this an income? Again, if it was an income, I could have directly gone to income, other income, interest income, and put it. Or you can also go to deposit from other accounts and select what is the nature of your transaction. Always remember, this step of classifying your bank account transactions is all about knowing in which head it is to be classified. Okay, sometimes you may have a confusion about a transaction or two. You can always consult your CA as to how it is to be done. In exceptional cases where it is a little tough, maybe you don't understand, but in most cases it is very straightforward. It could be a customer payment, a customer advance, it could be an income, it could be transfer from one account to another, it could be a deposit from another account, it could be an expense refund that is received. Okay, it could be some equity or owner's contribution that you're adding to your business. It could be a payment that you had made to the vendor but it got refunded for some reason, so you can book it here. So basically Zoho has given you all the classifications for your deposits. You just need to follow these classifications and try to classify all your transactions. I understand there will always be a few transactions where you will be confused, but you can consult your CA for those few transactions. But you can classify 90% of the transactions all on your own. Now the next thing to see is withdrawals. Okay, now let's say now what will be withdrawals about from your bank statement? Withdrawals will be, let's say you incurred expenses, that will be the major head. or you repaid a loan, or you transferred from one bank account to another. Okay, so these could be the different transactions that where you're making the payments, or like you could have a supplier or a vendor to whom you're making the payment. So in this case, you need to identify what is the nature of the withdrawal for you. Okay, now if you've already created a purchase bill, okay, so if you go to purchase, you make a bill. If you've made a bill against the vendor, in the banking module, you will select that this is a payment against that vendor. Why? Because when the bill is created, that expense gets booked directly. You don't have to book the expense again. But in your balance sheet, you will see that you need to pay this XYZ vendor a particular amount. Okay. Let's look at an example. Again, in this case, let's say the vendor is Nikita. I'm also a customer and I'm also a vendor. Okay. And you can fill in the rest of the details. Display name, we will say Nikita P, so that there's a distinction between vendor and customer. Okay, I've created a vendor. Now I've decided to create a bill. Okay, so let's say Nikita P, and right now I'm only one item, so I'm going to select that item, and let's say I have to pay her 1000 rupees. Okay, I've said, yeah, I need to enter a bill number 1001 and bill date, let's say it's 1st of January. I'm going to say save as draft. Okay, I'm going to convert this bill to open. So now what Zoho did is, now it booked this 1000 rupees in the expense account directly. So for example, if you go to your reports and if you go to profit and loss, what you will see is, you will see the income from batch 16, batch 18 like we just saw, and then you will see an expense of 1000 rupees that is to be paid to Nikita. So you will see your net profit. Okay, you will see some net profit. This was one transaction that I had classified earlier, but you will see your net profit or loss on that basis. Okay, and then if you open your balance sheet, okay, you will see that you need to pay, there is something in accounts payable. If you click on that, you will see that it is payable to Nikita P. So based on the transaction we just made. Now if you go to banking, you just need to select, when did you pay Nikita P? Let's see, there's a transaction of 1000 rupees here, but there's no transaction in withdrawals. Okay, let's say out of the 1000 rupees, we paid 450 to Nikita P. So I'm going to select vendor payment and I'm going to select Nikita P, and then I'm going to select out of 1000 I paid 450, and then I can say save. If you do that, it will say out of the 1000 you've paid 450 to Nikita and the remaining is yet to be paid. That will appear in your balance sheet. Okay, so in this manner, if you've created a bill, you need to book that payment against the vendor. But let's say you've not created any bill, you're just directly booking your expenses. Okay, how do you do that? You just select on the expense. Okay, you decide the nature of the expense. First you classify between personal and business. If it's a personal expense, you can directly select owner drawings, that is you withdrew from the business for personal use. If it is a business expense, you will go under expense and you will select the respective head. What is it? Is it for advertising and marketing? Is it a professional fee? Is it bank fees? Is it, credit card charges? Is it some entertainment expense, office supplies? So there are a list of transactions available here. If your transaction is not available here, again, what you can do is you can go to chart of accounts under accounted and you can create that particular expense. Let's say I'm creating a new account. Okay, I will select the head expense, and let's say I want to create an expense called entertainment expense. Okay, then if there's a particular expense that I have incurred, I just need to go to banking, select that particular transaction, and then I can say that this transaction is an entertainment expense, and I can say save. It will directly go to my P&L as an entertainment expense. Okay, so in this manner you can decide or you can book your expenses on the basis of whatever head is there. Okay, Similarly, like we saw on deposits, you could record your customer payments and customer advances. Here you can record your vendor payments and vendor advances, right? Again, you can select transfer to another account in case of specific transactions. Again, it will depend on what kind of transaction this is. Or you can also select, now if you've made any credit card payments, you can select card payment. Okay, if there's some payment refund, you can select payment refund. So you can see all the kind of transactions that are available. Again, there might be 5 or 10% transactions that you may not understand how it is to be done. You can contact your CA or contact someone who knows about accounts. They will definitely be able to tell you how do you have to classify this transaction. But at least 90% of your withdrawals you should be able to book without any hassle if you just follow what I've told you in this video. Okay, so in this manner, all you need to do is classify all these transactions. So when you start classifying, they'll start appearing into the categorized section. Now let's say I decide that, oh, I made a mistake and I didn't categorize this correctly. So then you can go to all transactions and you can just select on that transaction and say uncategorized, right? By uncategorizing it, it'll again go to this uncategorized transactions section, and then you can classify it correctly on the basis of the actual nature of that transaction. I will suggest that you integrate your bank account and try doing all of this that I've told you in this video. Try classifying your transactions. If you face any issues, I'll help you. Please ask me in the comment section down below. I'll help you as much as I can. And it's not as tough as you think it might be. All you need to do is identify the nature of the transaction. Is it an income? Is it an expense? Is it just a transfer from one account to another? Is it just a deposit from one account to another? So once you've identified all of that, it becomes very easy. Most of the items in our bank statements are in the nature of either income or expenses. So if you just follow this, if you integrate your bank account, classify your incomes, classify your expenses, the end of the year you'll have a P&L, you'll know where do you incur your maximum expenses and how do you go about reducing those expenses, what were your profits. You'll get a lot of data to study, right? So I will suggest that you try this and let me know in the comment section below how does it go, and whatever questions you have for me, I'll be happy to answer them. My name is Nikita and I will see you guys in the next video.